Welcome back. Happy Monday, everyone. I hope that you are coming off of a weekend that gave you joy and pleasure and relaxation if you needed it, excitement if you needed it. I hope you got whatever you needed from this weekend and now are super excited to go into this brand new week, fresh and ready. You know, we're coming off of this Halloween. We're right at the Halloween season. And I associate Halloween season with scary things and fear. So this week we're going to be talking about overcoming fear. And I'm going to give you the number one thing you need to do in order to overcome fear. So welcome back to the aha moments, where every day I share the lessons I've learned in my work as a psychotherapist and in my life to inspire you to live your very best life. Of course, I'm your host, Elliott Connie. And so here's something about me that you might not know. I don't think I've ever said it on our podcast here, but I cannot deal with horror movies. I can't stand them. They've scared me my entire life. I do not like horror movies. I do not like the experience of being scared. If I go to a horror movie, it's the worst thing ever. I'll tell you about the worst date I ever had. I was dating this woman in college, and it was around the time that the new remake of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre came out. And it was our second date, and I asked her, so what do you want to do? And she said, I want to go see this new Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. And I knew, oh boy, this is not my kind of movie. I don't want to do this. But I psyched myself up, and I talked myself into going. And, when you watch a horror movie, you can literally tell by the music. You hit that climactic scene where, from this point forward, everybody in the movie dies. Everybody in the movie, from this point forward, everybody is toast. And we got to that point in the movie, I got so anxious, I got so fearful, I turned to this woman that I was going to college with, and I said, I can't do this. And I got up and I walked out of the theater and left her there. And I sat out in the lobby of that movie theater, and I just thought, man, she's going to tell all my friends on the college campus that I did this. She's going to tell all my friends that I just left her there. They're going to make fun of me so bad. It was awful. That's how badly I can't stand horror movies. And I realized that some of us walk through life with that level of fear, almost as if our life is a sequence of horror movies, because we fear things that cause us to not take chances, to not take risks, to not step into our purpose, to not be who we're supposed to be. We fear the unknown, and we fear change, and we fear these things that cause us to be hesitant. In the same way that I got up and walked out of the theater, we kind of get up and walk away from the challenges that we're supposed to endure. I want you to understand something that will make a huge difference in your life. What I want you to do is I want you to think, I have overcome every single challenge that has been presented to me up until this point. Literally every challenge I've ever faced, I have made it through. And then I want you to realize that I don't have to walk away from the challenge. I can step into it. If I could go back to the version of Elliott I was back in 1997 or 8, whenever this date happened, I would want to remind myself, you have made it through every horror movie you've ever watched. You can make it through this one. But I gave into the anxiety. I gave into the fear. And it caused me to not make it through to the end. And I want you to make it through to the end so bad. I want you to be who you're supposed to be. I want you to step into your truth so badly, and the only way to do that is you have to accept the challenges that life presents you. And I'm sorry, life is going to present you with challenges. That's what life does. All of us, that's what happens. But I want you to step into that truth. I want you to own that truth. I want you to be who you're supposed to be. And that is when life is really fulfilled. That is really when you can live the kind of life that will put you at your very, very best. But you have to be able to mentally overcome that thing that causes us to hesitate. You have to be able to mentally overcome that thing that causes you fear. You have to be able to mentally overcome. It's okay to be afraid. It's okay to do it scared. It's okay. Fear is not something to remove. It's something to overcome. So it's okay to do it afraid. It's okay to be scared. But I don't want you to give into it. I don't want you to let it paralyze you. I want you to accept it's okay. If I have to do it scared, then I'll do it scared. So I want you to reflect on your life and think about the things that have caused you fear and think about how you got through them, because that's going to inform you about your very best self. And to be honest with you, that's what this podcast is all about, helping you be your very best self. So thank you for being here so much, guys. I really appreciate it. Hope you have a happy Halloween. I hope you have a happy Monday. I love you guys so much. Please, please, please help me reach more people, though. I really need your help. If you could share this podcast on your social media platforms, just hit the share button on the page. That would be so great. And even if you just share it with one person in your life that you think could benefit from hearing this message today, that would mean the world to me. And also, don't forget to become a subscriber. You can do that wherever you enjoy listening to podcasts. Apple, Spotify, Simplecast, any of those places. You can also become a VIP listener at Patreon and get bonus episodes each and every week and transcriptions from each and every episode. I love you guys so much. Thank you for listening, and I can't wait to see you tomorrow. Fear is a significant part of all of our lives. Like, all of us have things that we fear, and that fear impacts us and impacts how we live, our decisions, current levels, our anxieties. Fear is just a part of our lives. I'm no different. And the biggest fear that I've ever had to deal with was the fear of my father and his anger and trying to get his approval. That fear plagued the early part of my life until I was able to overcome it. And today I'm going to talk to you about how I overcame that fear and the impact it has had on my life. So welcome back to the aha moments, where every day I share the lessons I've learned in my work as a psychotherapist and in my life to inspire you to live your very best life. You know, I always feared my dad's anger because, I would make a child normal mistake. I would make a decision that is the way children make decisions and that highlights a child's thought process, and would be punished heavily and mightily for it. My dad's anger was the thing I spent my entire life trying to avoid. In fact, it caused me to not think about my goals and my dreams and what I wanted to accomplish, because I was so busy thinking about how do I do things to get his approval and to not get his anger. Until I realized that was creating anxiety in me. That was creating depression in me. That was creating stress in me. That was literally creating thoughts of suicide. I literally thought I would never be able to overcome it. It was such a profound part of my life. I just thought I'm going to live this way forever. And when I found that to be just unmanageable, that's when I started to have thoughts of suicide. When I couldn't bear the thought of this is what life will be like forever, I couldn't imagine living any further. And I realized one day that as uncomfortable as that was, it probably isn't any more uncomfortable than if I face this fear. And I know that might sound crazy, but I realized that if I have this thought about ending my life, and I think there's a permanence to my father's treatment of me that I did not want to endure, well, that's probably not as bad as if I just face this fear. So when I was 19 years old, I stood up to him. I called him. Actually, I went to talk to him. I knew he wasn't home because I just gone to talk to him, and the conversation did not go well. So I called his home, and this is back in the day when you have answering machines. So I called his home number, and I left a voicemail on his answering machine that said, I just tried to say this to you face to face. It did not go well. I really need to live a life where I'm not being yelled at, hit, or called names. That's it. That's my rule. I need to live a life where those things were true. That might sound like a simple thing, but it literally took me 19 years to say that sentence. And it took everything in me to follow it up. My father became very manipulative and angry with his 19-year-old son standing up to him, and the name calling got worse. The manipulation got bad. The few months following that call were some of the hardest I'd ever had, because I had a grief issue. And one of the hardest things is when you grieve someone that's not dead, they're still alive, they're still here, but yet I'm grieving their loss. But I endured, and I came out on the other side of it no longer afraid of my father's anger. In fact, it broke the pattern, because once you have a fear like that of one person, you end up trying to do several things to seek people's approval. And I was not interested any further of getting people's approval. I was mostly interested in figuring out who Elliott Connie was and what Elliott Connie wanted to do with his time here on Earth. My big focus became accomplishing my dreams and goals, aside from just not upsetting my father. It completely changed my life and impacts me to this very day. The sad thing is my father has demonstrated he could not follow those rules. In the subsequent years, I've only had a handful of conversations with him, and in each of those conversations, it was clear to me that my rules were going to be broken. So that was a boundary that I had to stick to. But of all the things I've accomplished in my life, I've written books and traveled the world and all of the things that I've accomplished in my life, the thing I'm most proud of was developing the courage to stand up to my father and put an end to the abuse that was happening in my life. And I share that story with you because I want you guys to know, like, whatever it is that's plaguing you and causing you fear, if you face it in a healthy way, the benefits are tremendous and you become the very best version of yourself. And that's what I want you all to do. So just think for a bit about something that's causing you fear and how can you address it in a healthy way, because your best self is on the other side of that decision. Thank you so much for being here. I love you guys so much. This is a super important topic. So please help me reach more people by hitting that share button on the page and sharing this podcast on your social media platforms, or even with one person in your life that you think could benefit from hearing this message today. And don't forget to become a subscriber. You can do that anywhere you enjoy listening to your podcast, Apple, Spotify, Simplecast, any of those places. And you can also become a VIP subscriber at Patreon. I would love it if you would do that. We give bonus episodes each and every week, and you get a transcription from each and every episode. Love you guys so much. Thanks for being here. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Fear is not just some emotional thing that happens to us. It actually manifests itself physically. It's actually something we have a visceral response to. It's actually something that gets triggered in your body. But we have to be able to recover from that. We have to be able to build our bodies back up. We have to be able to come back from that. So in today's episode of this podcast, I'm going to talk about how fear manifests itself in our bodies physically and how we can recover from that. So welcome back to the aha moments, where every day I share the lessons I've learned in my work as a psychotherapist and in my life to inspire you to live your very best life. Of course, I'm your host, Elliott Connie. And so let me give you an example. When I was a child, and I'll talk about a kind of benign fear, and then I'm going to talk about it kind of more serious way. But when I was a child, there was a pitcher. I was playing baseball at the time. I was 11 years old. And there was this guy who played on another team who was a year older than me, whose name was David Marchand. David Marchand was like, every town has like the athlete that was better than everyone at everything. Well, that was David at that time. And I was new to the area, so I didn't know that David was the person that was like that dude. Like, David was the person that everyone feared playing against. And he pitched and he threw the baseball, 1,000 miles an hour, it seemed like, to my little 11-year-old brain. But I didn't know I should fear him. Everyone else on my team had lived in this area for a really long time, but I was new to the area. I didn't know David was someone I was supposed to fear. So when I had my very first at bat with David, this guy who was a really great pitcher, I got a hit because I didn't bring fear to the at bat with me. I didn't bring fear to the baseball field. I just went to go play. Now, later on, and I played against David 1,000 times, and I later learned, this is the guy that everybody fears because he's so talented. I wasn't disciplined enough in my thinking as an 11-year-old, then 12, then 13. The last time I played against David, I was 14. I wasn't disciplined enough in my thinking to realize part of why I was successful in that original experience, because I didn't have fear. Because one of the ways that fear manifests itself physically is it reduces our ability to perform. It makes it harder for us to do a task at the highest level. It really interrupts our thinking. It triggers depression. You guys know when you have that fear and that angst, you get that feeling in the pit of your stomach. Some of us start shaking. We get worried and we have a visceral response. We get headaches. Our vision becomes poor. Like, these are the physical manifestations of fear. I spent most of my childhood in fear. I was afraid of upsetting my father. The worst moments of my childhood was when the report cards came out, because it didn't matter how good you did on your report card. It would trigger violence in my home. I feared that, and it really, really was hard for me. So how do you overcome it? How do you overcome that? Well, the way you overcome it is you think about your past successes. So one of the things that I deal with these days, like when I have a fear, and look, there's a silly fear that exists in my life, but it's a fear nonetheless. Most of the time when I'm like putting something out into the world, whether it's a book or a video or an article or some piece of work and some piece of thing that I'm working on, I get nervous. Like, I'm really scared to put it out into the world. I get afraid to hit send, believe it or not. What helped me overcome that challenge is I look back and I realize whether this goes well or not, I have survived hard things before. The easiest way to overcome your fear is to look in your past for evidence of success, but not just evidence of things going well, but actually evidence of things going poorly, really poorly, and you survive the poorly. Things going really challengingly, things going really difficultly, and you survive the challenge, you survive the struggle. If you are able to survive the struggle and you remember that I have the skills, not like if I hit send on this email, everybody's gonna love it, or if I send out this video, everybody's gonna love it, or if I share this book, everybody's gonna love it. Not that, but simply, even if everybody hates it, if the whole world hates it, I have survived difficult things before, and that way I can anticipate surviving this one. So my challenge to you now is, as you notice your own fear and as you encounter your own fear, because all of us do, I want you to practice remembering I've made it through difficult things before, and think about what challenging experiences you have had in the past that you have survived and made it through, and that will help you remember that you can make it through this one. Thank you so much for listening today, guys. I can't even tell you how much it means to me that you support me and my projects. Please share this podcast and help me reach more people. It's right there on the page. Just hit the link and share it on your social media platforms, or even just share it with one person in your personal life that you think this podcast could make a difference for. And also become a subscriber if you're not already. You can do that at any place where you enjoy listening to podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Simplecast, absolutely anywhere. And you can also become a VIP listener by subscribing on Patreon, and you get access to bonus episodes and transcriptions from each and every episode. Thank you so much for being here. Love you guys. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. One of the things about me is I draw inspiration and strength from many sources. I'll remember a quote, or I'll read a book, or like a scene from a TV show or a movie will just kind of stick with me, and it gives me inspiration and it gives me strength. And sometimes it's an athlete and watching an athlete perform in circumstances where they shouldn't have been able to perform at such a high level. Today I want to talk to you about one such athlete overcoming fear, overcoming obstacles, and being able to perform and use her voice. I think it's important, so that's what we're going to talk about today. So welcome back to the Aha Moments, where every day I share the lessons I've learned in my work as a psychotherapist and in my life to inspire you to live your very best life. Of course, I'm your host, Elliott Connie, and I want to talk to you about Simone Biles. Simone Biles is widely regarded as the best American gymnast, or gymnast at all, that has ever lived. She is the most decorated gymnast. She has had success at the Olympics and other international competitions that is profound. And as I watched her over the years and was a fan of her elite athletic prowess, it never really kind of hit me that she did all of that while being a survivor of sexual assault. It wasn't until the Larry Nassar sexual assault case came out that you realize the women on that team are all survivors of sexual assault, and their friends are all survivors of sexual assault. And to be able to perform athletic at that level after going through something like that, after your teammates and friends have gone through something like that, is enormously inspirational to me. But what I found even more inspirational, at the latest Olympics, the stress of this life caused her to have PTSD. And she developed something that in the gymnast world they called the spinnies. And that means when you're doing flips and tricks in the air, you're not able to keep track of where the ground is. And it becomes very dangerous because you will land awkwardly on your side, head, whatever, and you could injure yourself quite severely. So Simone Biles had to pull out of the Olympics. And when that happened, and she had an announcement, I'm pulling out of the Olympics, I have to focus on my mental health, people on social media annihilated her. They attacked her mercilessly. I remember even people I'm personally friends with. I was on Facebook, and I'm being so amazed by the strength of this young woman saying that she has to take a pause from the Olympics to focus on her mental health. And I'll never forget reading through the comments on my personal Facebook page. Someone that I know personally was dropping F-bombs about how terrible she is, and she's letting down this country, and I'm tired of unpatriotic people. And I remember them making a statement like, she's under contractual obligation. And Simone Biles the attacks were just unbelievable. to the point where she released a video of her training because she tried everything she could to perform. And in the video, she was landing dangerously on her back. She was landing anywhere but on her feet because of this disorientation that she had. And it just made me think a couple of things. Number one, why do we put people like Simone Biles in a position where they have to defend themselves? Why can't it just be enough that I'm going to make this decision for my own mental health? Why can't that be enough? Why can't we just support them and trust that they know what's best for them, trust that they know what is good for them, and that is all they need? The second thing, it made me think of how strong it must be to talk about your life, your mental health, your decisions, knowing that people are going to criticize and attack you. You know, I have a very visible career in my field, in the field of psychotherapy, and I have been in situations where I know I'm going to say something in a video. I put videos on my YouTube channel, and I put videos on my social media, and I release videos every week. And I know sometimes I'm going to say something that's going to cause people to be upset. I know I'm going to say something that's going to cause people to attack me. I know I'm going to say something that's going to cause people to criticize me. And my world is 1/1000th of Simone Biles. And I struggle to do it. I struggle to find the confidence and courage to do it. I'm so amazed that Simone Biles could do that and inspire so many people by being just who she is. And I just want to highlight that because, look, guys, overcoming fear is a really huge challenge, and it's something that we all deal with. And sometimes looking for inspiration on how to do it is a huge, huge win. And for me, in this recent time, Simone Biles inspired the hell out of me. Like, I couldn't believe how amazing she was in going through that situation. I wanted to highlight it here. So I want you to think about, who is it that inspires you, who has overcome some fear and showed courage, because I want us to be able to draw on those things when times get difficult. So thank you so much for being here. Love you guys so much. Please hit that share button and share this podcast on your social media platforms, or even share it with one person that you think could benefit from hearing this message today. And don't forget to become a subscriber. You can do that at Apple, Spotify, Simplecast, wherever it is you enjoy listening to podcasts. You can even become a VIP subscriber on Patreon and get access to bonus material, including extra episodes each week and a transcription from each and every episode. I love you guys so much for listening. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Do you want to know why fear is such a huge problem that we all face at some point or another? Why fear is so debilitating, it always creates this experience where we're frozen and stuck, afraid to move, take action, take risks. Today, I'm going to talk to you about exactly why that is and what you need to do to move your life forward. Welcome back to the Aha Moments, where every day I share the lessons I've learned in my work as a psychotherapist and in my life to inspire you to live your very best life. Of course, I'm your host, Elliott Connie, and listen, there's a really simple, basic reason why fear is so pervasive in our society. There's a really simple reason why fear is so prominent amongst all of us. There's a really simple reason why fear impacts just about all of us, and that is because the world is scary. I don't know if you've done it recently, but if you turn on the news, you're not going to get inspired watching the news. If you're scrolling through social media, you're probably not going to derive courage from what you find on social media. You're going to see things that cause you concern and cause you fear. The other thing that's crazy is we don't spend enough time in our society building one another up. We spend more time pointing out each other's flaws. We spend more time criticizing one another than we do building one another up. And it leads to us being more familiar with our problems and with our flaws than we are with our greatness. So what do? You know, it's equally simple. Spend time looking at and doing things that uplift your spirit. Spend time allowing things into your brain, allowing things into your mentality, allowing things into your spirit that make you feel good about yourself and make you feel courageous. Surround yourself with people who believe in you to such a degree that instead of criticizing you, they praise you. Instead of pointing out your flaws, they point out your strengths. Instead of pointing out your deficits, they point out your resources. That is how we overcome fear. That is how we move beyond fear. Like, I see some of y'all out there, man, and you're afraid. You're afraid to go after that job you've always wanted so you stay stuck. You're afraid to pursue that relationship you've always wanted so you stay stuck. So much fear guides our behavior, and the way to overcome it is to give yourself the gift of courage and allowing things into your brain that give you courage and inspiration. And I don't just mean courage to get rid of fear, but what I mean is courage to know that even if something goes badly, I can handle it. Even if the worst occurs, I can handle it. I was talking to a friend today who said he realized one day that 9 times out of 10, the thing he feared never happened. And that 10th time, when the thing he feared happened, he realized he could get through it. Think about the power in that. Think about the freedom in that. I know that when something difficult happens, when the worst thing I've ever imagined or thought about happens, I know I can overcome it. I know I can get through it. I know I have the power, skills, resources, abilities, and resiliencies to overcome the difficulty. There is an amazing power in that thought, but most of us don't think about that. We just live in the fear and try to avoid the thing that causes us fear because we forget we are powerful beyond measure. And that includes being able to handle a difficult thing when it comes our way. So you've got to think about yourself in a different way. You've got to allow people to talk to you in a different way. You've got to allow yourself to spend your time taking in more information. I was flying on a plane one day pretty recently, and I was scrolling through the movie options, and I saw this movie called Maverick, which I've now seen probably 10 times. Saw it in the theater. I've seen it on different airplanes and different places. And the guy sitting next to me, there was an option to watch live news, and he turned on a news channel. Probably shouldn't say the channel, but he turned on a news channel, and they were just fear-mongering. I could see it out of the corner of my eye, just fear-mongering. And I just thought, what a different experience both of our brains are getting on this plane. I'm watching a very kind of inspirational story, and I won't give it away, but if you know the story of Maverick, it's a very inspirational story about a guy kind of finding himself. And this guy is watching a news channel that is just fear-mongering the heck out of him. And this was a longer flight. It was a 5.5-hour flight. So for 5.5 hours, my brain got fed inspiration, and his brain got fed fear. Think about that. Live your life in line with your greatness and watch your greatness unfold. And that's literally what I want you to practice this week. We've gone through this whole week. We're now at Friday. We've gone through this whole week talking about overcoming fear, and I hope I've inspired you to do just that. So find words, people, and encouragement to help you remember I can accomplish great things, even if the great thing I accomplish is getting on with life after I've experienced a setback. Love you guys. Thanks for being here. Please hit that share button and share this podcast on your social media platforms or with at least one person in your personal life. And don't forget to subscribe. You can do that wherever you enjoy podcasts, whether it's Apple, Spotify, Simplecast, any of those places. You can also become a VIP listener at Patreon, and you get bonus episodes each and every week, and you also get transcriptions from each and every episode. Love y'all, man. Thanks so much for being here. Can't wait to see you on Monday. Have a great weekend.